Richard and I have decided to do a video on a band that we both like a great deal.
Love,
sorry.
James.
Yeah. Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome to another video, and today I am delighted to welcome a very special guest. We have Richard McCook. Hi Richard.
How you doing, James? Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me for this video. And we should just say, I think it's Richard's first time on Zoom, I believe.
It is the very first time ever. The only reason I was never on it was my phone was as old as the hills, and I finally had to give in and get a new phone. So
Excellent.
I downloaded Zoom, so here's the opportunity to go more.
Good stuff. Right, excellent. Well, Richard and I have decided to do a video on a band that we both like a great deal. That band.
Love, James. Love.
Sorry.
James.
Love, yeah. Yeah, that band being Squeeze. So we'll just, if I can hold that up now, just to remind people. I'm sure Richard has got one at his disposal. There we go. So, yeah, I mean, I've been into Squeeze since 1979. Cool for Cats was the first single I bought. I think you came in a little bit later, Richard.
I did, James. I was first aware of Squeeze from Cool for Cats. I remember seeing them do it on the Kenny Everett video show.
Yeah. And
I remember Up the Junction. But really, the first one for me, the first single I bought was Labelled with Love. Now, on the B-side of that is Squawks on 40 Fab, which is really a compilation with a disco beat of all their hits. Yeah. And I loved it, and it's from there that I went back to explore all the albums.
So, I mean, the theme of this video, we're going to try and assemble an alternative album to this one, because this is the kind of greatest hits album that came out in 1982. I think it was December 82, just as the band were breaking up. And it came out on A&M. It contains 12 tracks, and what's ironic is that it was a big hit album. And I say ironic because Squeeze never really had a big hit album. And to this day, most people who think of Squeeze, people who are not hardcore fans, they tend to trot out this line, Squeeze were a great singles band who never really made a good album. And I know that you don't agree with that any more than I do, Richard.
You're dead right, I don't. Any of the LP tracks are very melodic in their own right. And so in doing this list, I have assembled a 12-track album, which I think is melodically just up there with the actual singles. And in some cases better. There's some songs on here I think would have been made better singles than were actually on the Singles 45s and Under album.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, my list is not necessarily a list of would-be singles. I've just gone for kind of deep cuts that I really love.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to make out that my list would have all been great hit singles. But
I went the other way. James. Well, that's good because we've got two alternate albums then.
Absolutely.
So I went for what could have been a single, or what would have been the next single off the album if another one or two had been released.
So what we've done is, viewers, we put together a 12-track compilation album, because this was 12 songs. But what we've done is, so the first 11 tracks on this record all came from the first 5 Squeeze albums, which came out between 1978 and 1982. So there were 11 tracks from the albums, and then there was a bonus track on the end, Annie Get Your Gun, which was a standalone single. So what we've done, we've come up with our own albums, which contain 11 tracks taken from the first 5 albums, and then we've stuck a bonus track on from somewhere else, from another part of the band's career. Would you like to go first, Richard?
The very first song I've actually picked to open up the album is a B-side.
Okay.
It's not on any album, and it's the B-side of Christmas Day, and it's called Going Crazy, and I think it's absolutely magnificent. I love the sound of it, especially the backing whenever the chorus comes on. It sounds like vocals, but I don't think it is vocals. I think it's a synthesizer. It's actually quite eerie, and it's a brilliant opener, and that's my #1 choice. And this, I believe, is recorded between the Cool for Cats and the Argy Bargy sessions. It may have been recorded earlier, but it wasn't issued until this was a standalone single. Yeah. Not a very good single, by the way, Christmas Day. It's very un-Christmassy, but the B-side, fantastic, and it should have been for me a double A side. But it's got like those dual vocals as well, which I enjoy with Glenn and Chris, like the Take Me, I'm Yours.
It's the high voice, low voice, octave apart singing.
Yeah.
Their distinct trademark. Yeah. Okay, Richard, fantastic. Yeah, good choice. straight out of the gate with the B-side. Well, I don't have any B-sides, don't think, in my list, so I'm going to be very boring and go in a chronological direction. So I'm going to start with the first Squeeze album from 1978, and there are only 2 songs off this album that were released as singles. There was Take Me I'm Yours, which was their first hit single, Bang Bang, which was a flop. The song I've picked, I think, is better than Bang Bang, but it's not as good as Take Me I'm Yours. And it's a song from side 2, and it's one that I always loved as a kid without really ever understanding it. And it's the song Remember What.
All right, okay.
Which is a very fast little pop song, essentially about a guy who's come home from the pub and he's woken up the next morning and he's just got absolutely no memory of what he's been doing. And the entire song is just him looking around him and just going, what on earth have I done? There's like sick in the sink. There's ashtrays all over his shoes. He knows he's offended somebody. He's got an idea that he's said something to someone, but he can't quite remember what it is. And that's it. It's just a song about a guy trying to remember what he did last night, you know. And I was 9 years old when I first heard that song. And I used to listen to it and go, why can't he remember anything? I don't understand. Why would you not be able to remember what you did? And it was just a classic example. I mean, Squeeze did drinking songs all the time, you know. 9 times out of 10, I would have absolutely no idea what they were singing about. But Remember What is such an infectious, happy little song. It's got a great hook. It's really fast as well. It's straight out of the gate, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't mess about. And it's one of the songs on the album that sounds like Squeeze, because most of that album doesn't sound like Squeeze, because John Cale made them
I agree.
Write different songs, whereas that one actually sounds like it may have been a song which they had from before. So that's my first pick.
Oh, so that opens your album, right? My second song, now this is all chronological now, and I'm going with the same album, which I think is the obvious choice of a single, and it's Model. With the do chorus. I think it's extremely catchy, and why Bang Bang was released, I don't know. I thought this would have been far better. Now, there's 2 versions of this. There's this version, and then there's I think it's re-recorded, or maybe just guitars added for the B-side of Cool for Cats.
Yeah.
This is the version I'm going for. The other one's a little sore in the ears with the guitar. I think it's too high up in the mix.
Yeah.
But yeah,
great
Model is my second choice.
Yeah, that song was the second Squeeze song I ever heard, because obviously the first single I ever got was Cool for Cats. So Model was on the B-side, and it's quite a different kind of song to Cool for Cats, because Cool for Cats is this sort of, you know, novelty pop song. But the re-recording of Model on the B-side of Cool for Cats is quite punky, isn't it? It's got quite hard guitars on it. So that was 1978, Squeeze's first album. So for my second choice, we're going to move to the next album, which was the Cool for Cats album, which came out in 1979. I've got the green version here. I don't know what colour you've managed to find on your show.
You shall see.
Okay. Now, I suspect we're going to pick the same song here, because to me, it's the obvious one. There were 4 great singles from this album. There was Cool for Cats, Up the Junction, Goodbye Girl, and Slap and Tickle. 3 of those 4, I think, are great songs. I don't think Slap and Tickle is a particularly great song. I think this song that I've picked is better than it by a country mile. And it's a song from side 2, and it's the song Slightly Drunk. Slightly Drunk to me was one that I loved as a kid. Again, it's very, very clever melodically. It's got a really clever chord sequence. It sounds almost like a Motown song to me. It's got some really nice little backing vocals in it. And again, it's a drinking song. But this one is quite clever. It's a song where he's writing a letter. He's writing a letter to his girlfriend, and I think he's basically trying to, you know, beg forgiveness. He's done something wrong again. It's this theme that keeps coming through in the early songs, because Christopher was a heavy drinker from a young age, and most of his songs where at this point they were written about either being drunk or being hungover or both. And I just think it's a really clever, nice little pop song with a really nice little sentiment in it. You know, a man who's writing to his girlfriend, slightly drunk once again, all alone with my pen. I thought I'd write to you, and I just love it.
You see, another thing I love about that song is the guitar solo in the middle.
Yeah.
By Glenn Tilbrook, and not only do you get it in the middle, you get it twice at the end, although it's slightly drowned out with the backing vocals. But I think it's a magnificent guitar solo, a la another Nail in My Heart. It's very similar type, where bang in the middle, you get a guitar solo, which you don't really get that often. It's usually at the end. And the drums, I think, are fantastic in it as well, especially at the end of each chorus. Well, my number 3 choice is also from the Green Cool for Cats. It's the only one I've got. I think this was actually the first or second Squeeze album I actually bought.
Yeah.
And I'm picking the slightly cheeky It's Not Cricket.
Ah, right, okay.
You know, I'm not going to talk about words, but I've always liked the words with tassels on or what's it. I always thought that was rather funny. I think it's just catchy. It's almost like a bit like Blur's Park Life. It's just your cheeky, chappy song.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a really, really fun song.
Yeah, that's a song that's got the references to the groom was in the car park with his trousers down.
Yeah, I know. Yes, but it's great, and it makes me smile, really. I think this makes me feel good.
Excellent.
So I might as well say that my number 5 is Slightly Drunk, and we've talked about that. So
we're going to move to 1980 now for the third album. From the Argy Bargy album, there were two singles from this record: Pulling Muscles from His Shell, which is the second single, I think, wasn't it? And Another Nail in My Heart. Those are the 2 singles, and they both kind of, underperformed. From this record, I'm going to go for, I think I've got a couple of tracks from this record. I'm going to go for a song on side 1, which again, I always loved when I was growing up, and it's the song Separate Beds.
Okay, I've got it as well.
Which is a song, I don't know whether it would have been a big hit single or not, but it's such a clever song.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it is.
It's
got such a simple little keyboard part, but it's so effective.
Chris Difford was always famous for writing in this kitchen sink style. Kitchen sink drama was a thing. 50s TV plays, kitchen sink stuff was always, it was sort of domestic stories about people from working class backgrounds. And Up the Junction is his most famous song in that style, a song about a couple living in this dirty flat trying to make ends meet. And Separate Beds is it's kind of like another one, really. It's this young couple trying to have a relationship, but the problem is that their respective parents are disapproving of them, and the boy is not liked by the girl's mother, and the girl is not liked by the boy's father. It's such a clever little song. And there's that fantastic line, isn't it? Her mother didn't like me. I'd never peel the spuds.
Spuds, yes.
Yeah. It's so British. It's so quirky, and it's almost a kind of a Kinks level of brilliance, I think.
Well, that's Chris Difford all over, though. That he's always been compared to Ray Davies.
I certainly think that they were the sort of missing link between, say, the Kinks and Blur. I mean, Morrissey is always given all this credit for his kind of kitchen sink style lyrics, and I can accept that. But I mean, Chris Difford got there first by at least,
of course,
by 5 years. And songs like Separate Beds, they are sort of a bit Smiths-like in a way. I mean, they don't have that kind of sarcastic thing that Morrissey had, and maybe like perhaps Ray Davies had a bit of that too, that slightly embittered, sarcastic. Chris Difford was not a sarcastic writer, and therefore I don't think he wasn't quite perceived as having as much of an edge, I think, maybe as some of these people.
Well, that was my number 6, going back to my number 5, and it is from Argy Bargy, and it's what I call Up the Junction Part 2, and it's Vicki Verti. I think it's one of the catchiest songs they have ever released. And I love the words of it. It's about, 2 young people, 14 or something, age of them. And obviously then she gets up the duff and he goes to Borstal. And the lyric, her mother sometimes hit her. If she'd have known the story, she would have been so sorry. I absolutely love that lyric. You won't hear me talking about lyrics much, but I love that lyric. And again, the keyboard part of this is just magnificent. And I think this would have been a big hit single. I think this would have been top 10. I don't know why they didn't even think of releasing this. I think it's a fantastic song. And that gets by number 5.
Yeah, it might have been because Jules Holland hated it. Jules Holland absolutely hated Vicki Verti. Yeah, so it might have had something to do with it. I don't know.
We have actually picked 2 from the same. I have another one from this album now.
Yes, I have 2, and I suspect it's going to be the same one.
Will I go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
They're at the top. Last song on side 2.
Me too.
Same as you?
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic guitar. Brilliant way to close an album. And this actually will open my second side of the singles, or the alternate singles as we call it. Really good. And again, the keyboards, I keep going back to the keyboards for some reason, but I love the keyboards in this. It's not piano, it is a synth of some sort. Brilliant song. I'll let you talk about the words.
Yeah, the keyboard was a Polymoog.
Right.
I've no idea what that is.
I have no idea what that is, but anyway.
There at the top was a song written about the girl who initially got Chris and Glenn together, a girl called Maxine Baker. She was Glenn Tilbrook's girlfriend. And when Christopher first puts his notice up in a sweet shop window in Blackheath, wanting musicians, it was Glenn Tilbrook who replied to that advert, but only at the prompting of his girlfriend, Maxine Baker. She kind of, prodded him on to reply to it. And Maxine played quite an important part in the early days of Squeeze, but she and Glenn had broken up by 1980, and she'd got a job, not sure where she got a job with, but she was working as a sort of executive, and Christopher was writing about her in this kind of new business world. She was wearing pencil skirts, and she was quite an organized businesswoman at this point. But it's a really great, catchy song. The riff is just, it's really, it's almost funky in a way. I mean, Squeeze were not.
Yeah, it is slightly, yeah.
But it's got a slight.
I think it is a very good way to actually end the album. I think it's an excellent way, but it's also a very good opener to side 2 of our album.
And they used to play it live, would you believe, on the Argy Bargy tour, 1980. It was one of their big live numbers. We're going to move on now to 1981. This is East Side Story, the one that was co-produced by Elvis Costello. Now, this had a couple of singles from it. There was Tempted, you had Is That Love? And then you had another quite major hit, a number 4 hit in Labeled With Love, which was the country song which Elvis Costello persuaded them to record. Now, the song I've picked from this record, I think, could have been a hit single, and it's the first track from the album. It's the song In Quintessence, which was produced by Dave Edmunds, and it starts with it's a riff, it's a guitar riff borrowed from the song Time Is Tight by Booker T and the MGs. It's got that kind of feel to it.
Didn't know that either.
And it's a great 2.5 minute glorious slice of melody. It's got a great little guitar solo in it, wonderful lyrics. It's yet another song about masturbation. Christopher used to write these songs about masturbation all the time. This one is no exception. In the corner with his book and tissue, all he can do is pretend to miss you, closes his eyes as he sees her body, pulls funny faces, and that's his hobby. So it's like kind of schoolboy smut thing to it, but it's got a really nice, sweet sound to it, very kind of happy, sad, and it's got a great example of their dual vocals in it. It's got Chris and Glenn doing the 2 vocals together, and to me, it just sounds like classic single material. So that's In Quintessence. Also from side 1, I got the song Heaven.
Ooh.
Which was sung by Chris Difford, and it was one of his Jacques Brel songs. Chris Difford was really into Jacques Brel when he was growing up, and he was quite into these kind of dark, slightly raunchy short story songs. And this is a song basically about a pub which is frequented by sailors. And I've no idea what the story is, but there's some great little visual images. My favourite lyric from Chris Difford, I think it's in this song: the beer mats are wading in a table of froth. The bar girl is serving with a check drying cloth.
You see, you look at those lyrics, whenever I think of Heaven, I think of the slightly out of tune piano or keyboard, which I think is really good, which reminds me a little bit of Sexy Sadie and also Radiohead's Karma Police, where the keyboard sounds slightly out of tune, but it actually makes the song.
And there's also a banjo solo on this song as well, I think. I guess this is one of the things we were talking about at the start, the fact that Squeeze songs, they could be quite experimental in their way. You sort of blink and you miss it, but you get these little touches like an weird out of tune piano or a banjo solo, you never quite know what you're going to get. So, and I love Christopher's vocal in it as well. It's sort of, he's doing it in the style of his Cool for Cats voice again. It's one of his kind of street level, slightly swaggery kind of gruff vocals, so that was Heaven. I've got one more choice from this record, but I think I've caught you up now, so maybe it's your turn.
Okay, well, I have 2 from this album, and I'll do I'll do one and then you do yours. And Piccadilly.
Okay.
The catchy little song, track 4 from side 1. There's not a lot to this, but it's the call and response vocals that really make this, especially at the end. There's no real chorus. It's almost like a loop the whole time. You know, they go round and round and round, and then the backing vocals come in. It's just extremely catchy. And again, I think it could have been a good single. I can't dissect the words because I haven't really concentrated too much on the words, as I never do.
Well,
So, no, really enjoy it. It's a good song.
Yeah, even though I didn't choose it myself, I did predict that you would. So therefore, I wrote down some words from it. So this song, it's this kind of little story song about a night out on the town, really. That's all it is. It's about a guy, he goes out on the town with his girlfriend, they go for a meal, they go and see a play, they go for a curry, and then they go back to his parents' house for a snog and get caught by the parents. That's, you know, kind of thing. And the song, it's packed with all this detail. The cab took us home through a night I'd not noticed, the neon club lights of adult films and Trini Lopez. My arm around her, but my acting was hopeless. I mean, rhyming Trini Lopez with hopeless, you know, just brilliant.
I know, it must be very difficult to do that, you know. That cannot come to you straight off the cuff. Your turn.
Right, well, I've got one more song from this record, and it's a song from side 2. It's a very strange song, this one. It's very surreal, and it's the song Mumbo Jumbo.
I was very close to picking that,
Yeah, which is a very, very strange song. Now, what I love about this one is the music, really. It's sort of got a Buddy Holly feel to it. The actual riff itself sounds like a Buddy Holly thing. It's got all these drums, like on the Buddy Holly hits, that kind of, you know, the kind of tom-tom thing going on. It's a very strange song. It's very catchy, but lyrically it's very surreal, and can't quite work out what it's all about. But there's some great lines in it as well. It appears to be about a woman living in a flat, and there's this guy who's trying to chat her up, but it's an odd song. I know it mentions Scrabble, which I used to love that. I can't think of any other group who ever made a song that had a reference to Scrabble set in it.
Well, you see, his vocals are real, his words are real life. If you think about it, you know, he tells stories about real life. I think, so to bring in Scrabble, which is just, nobody would ever think of talking about, everybody's got Scrabble. Has it ever been mentioned in the song? I don't think so.
On that record, of course, Chris Difford was trying to impress Elvis, because Elvis Costello, obviously, he was kind of viewed as being the absolute top draw. You know, he was the greatest lyric writer of his generation, really, wasn't he? And Chris Difford looked up to him.
Very wordy, very wordy. When you talk about Mumbo Jumbo, there's a lot of words in each line as well. So yes, I agree. Yeah. He's trying to impress Elvis Costello.
And same with Piccadilly as well. And in fact, one of the impressive things about Squeeze, I think, is the way that Glenn Tilbrook was just able to take these words and turn them into these songs, because other songwriters, you know, lesser songwriters would look at a lyric like Mumbo Jumbo or Piccadilly and just think, well, how on earth am I going to get all those words in? I'm going to have to chop some out, or I'm going to have to do something with them. But he never did that. He just used to take them in their entirety and you know, turn them into these little 3-minute whiz bang little pop songs.
Okay, well, my number 9 is from East Side Story, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. It's Woman's World.
Okay.
The last song on side 1, which is a gorgeous song. I absolutely love the bass line in this. I love the bass at the start. I love the piano part. And really, it's a rhythm guitar. There's no lead guitar in this as such. And it's got an absolutely gorgeous melody. And it's about really a woman and her troubles of being a woman. And again, I don't know if it would have made a fantastic single, but it's just a fantastic song, and I had to get on to my list. So Woman's World is my number 9.
Yeah, it's extremely touching song, isn't it? And again, it's about alcohol. I mean, she's kind of this kind of bored housewife, isn't she? And she's oppressed in the kitchen, and she's got all these troubles. So she goes out and gets really drunk, and then comes staggering home and makes a fool of herself in front of the family. And it's just like a little slice of life, really. There's no kind of big message behind the song. It's just like a little slice of life, and that's what he was so good at doing. I almost went for it, but I couldn't quite squeeze it in. So squeeze it in. I can't believe we've got all the way through the video so far without doing that one. Right, so we're going to move on now. So my last 3, I think you'll probably raise your eyebrow at all of them, because none of them I don't think would have been big hit singles. They all come from the band's final well, I say final, obviously Squeeze reformed later on, but the initial run of albums from 78 through to 82 culminated in Sweets from a Stranger, which was perceived at the time as being a bit of a disappointment after East Side Story. I'm quite fond of this record. So I should just say the two singles from this were Black Coffee in Bed, which was quite a famous song, but was not a hit, and When the Hangover Strikes, which was a complete flop. And I'd be surprised if anybody watching this video who's not a Squeeze fan will have heard that song. It was a flop beyond flop, really, wasn't it?
It's a good song, but it's just not a good single.
It's just not a good single, no. Now, whether my choices would have been any better, but on side one, you've got the song Points of View, which it has just got the most gorgeous melody, fantastic tune. Glenn Tilbrook just gives this great vocal performance, and like most of the songs on this record, it's a courtship song. It's a song about a young guy. He sees a girl in this nightclub and he likes the look of her, but he's basically a bit drunk and a bit insecure, and he doesn't really feel like he can go and talk to her. Such a lovely, touching song, and anybody who's been in that situation, a kind of teenage romance, you know, down the nightclub, you see a girl, you think, oh, I really fancy that girl, but you just don't feel like you could ever actually get through to her. And that essentially is what the song is about. I just find it a very touching song.
Well, I have Points of View as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, although I'm putting it at number 11.
Okay.
So you've talked about Points of View. I think it's really melodic song as well. I also think it's the closest you get to the East Side Story Squeeze. Because I remember buying this album when it actually came out. I bought the Black Coffee in Bed single. Whenever this came out, I have to admit I was disappointed because it was so different. But there was two songs that stood out to me, apart from Black Coffee in Bed, and that's why I'm picking them, and one of them was Points of View.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go on to your next one before I pick my next one.
So the next one is on side 2, and this is a song which always grabbed me back in the day, because it was like watching a little movie. And it's the song His House, Her Home, which is sung by Chris Difford, but he doesn't sing it in his usual voice. He sings it in this soft, high voice. It sounds very tremulous and very kind of emotional, I guess. And it's a song about a man having an affair with a married woman in her house, and being watched by her young son. And there are so many fantastic details in the song. You know, it mentions like the woman has got her husband's portrait hanging on the wall, and this guy is having a snog with this woman with this portrait looking down at them. Such a great image. And then later in the song, he's kissing the woman in the bathroom, and her son is standing watching them kissing and trying to work out what's going on. And musically, the song is dominated by this kind of harpsichord. It's got like a sort of harpsichord type sound on it. It sounds a bit like the Randall and Hopkirk Deceased kind of thing. It's got a kind of almost like a period air to it. And I just always loved it. It was such a clever little story song, and really emotional too, because you got the impression that these two people actually did love each other.
Well, my number 10 choice, I've given you my number 11 with Points of View, is His House, Her Home as well. So I'm glad you mentioned the harpsichord, because I think it really makes the song whenever it comes in. I think it's great, and I call it the song that Chris Difford actually tries to sing.
Yeah. Because
he actually is having a go at singing, and his voice is actually very good.
Yeah.
It's not falsetto, but it is quite higher than his normal, you know, all right, governor sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a beautiful song, and as I say, it and Points of View were the only two tracks I really liked from the off on this album. I'm going with Points of View and His House, Her Home. So that's my 11.
Well, I've got one left, and it's from this again. So this one, I suspect, again, so perhaps this one will be the one that makes your eyebrow go up. This is actually my favourite Squeeze song of all time. So you'll probably just go, what? to this? But it's the last song on the album, The Elephant Ride.
Right.
When I was a kid, it used to make me cry. It's so beautiful. The tune is just heavenly. It's a song that doesn't really have a proper chorus. It's almost like a sort of free form song. I mean, they were great at doing those kind of songs, you know, like Up the Junction, where there's no verses or choruses. It's just this kind of ongoing story.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to this song, really. It's just about a man and a woman in bed. There's so many details. There's a cigarette burning on the ashtray. the light's coming in through the curtains, and they're just lying in this bed. And there's this refrain that keeps coming back, today is none of our concern. And it just captures that wonderful feeling of when you're in this relationship and you're just, you're in bed together, and there's no reason to get up, there's no reason to go anywhere, there's no reason to do anything. You're just absolutely cocooned in this bubble of love. And the song just has a very peaceful, almost like a sort of enchanted quality to it. If it had been a single, it would have absolutely bombed. There's no.
You don't think it sounds a little bit like Brinsley Schwartz, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, the start of it, with the acoustic-y feeling to it?
Yeah, well, it starts off with a chord on the guitar going from major to minor, which was nicked a little bit from the Beatles song "I'll Be Back."
Back, yeah.
It's one of the oldest tricks in the book if you're a songwriter. The way that Glenn Tilbrook, then he just starts to weave it into this totally beautiful melody, and it's one of his favorite songs as well. If you go and see a Glenn Tilbrook solo show where he's just playing the guitar, he often plays that song, and such a deep cut. It's not something that anybody would know. Nobody would know that song unless they were a hardcore Squeeze fan, and yet the fact that he plays it at all his gigs, I think, shows how much he likes it as well. My bonus track comes from the Frank album from 1989, and it's a song I've always loved. Again, it's one of the short story type songs which goes straight back to their earliest days, really, and it's the second song on the album, and it's Peyton Place,
right? Okay.
Which has got the most fantastic Jools Holland keyboard solo in it, piano solo in it. There are not that many Squeeze songs, oddly enough, that contain a piano solo. You'd think, wouldn't you? This fantastic pianist in the band, but he didn't actually get that many opportunities to play a really great piano solo. And that, I think, is probably the only song they ever did that has a really extended, quite complex piano solo in it. And the song, again, is just a slice of life type song, boy meets girl, Peyton Place. And what I love about it as well is I think Peyton Place, was that a reference to an old movie? Maybe again from...
I think there was yes, I believe so, yeah.
So it kind of goes back in my mind to Up the Junction, which was obviously, that was based on a film, which in turn had been based on a book. So Peyton Place, to me, that seems to be a song which takes Squeeze back to their roots a little bit, I think.
So it is from Frank, but it's Melody Motel. It is highly melodic, and any song with Officer Dibble in the lyrics gets a big thumbs up for me. It's obviously quite a tragic song, really. It's about, I believe, prostitutes getting murdered and so forth. But yeah, really, really catchy. And I think whenever I was compiling this album here gets back to the classic Squeeze sound. So it had to come from this album. I was very close to picking Dr. Jazz.
Yeah.
But because I love that. There's two Jools Holland songs I love by Squeeze, that and Wrong Side of the Moon. Yeah. Which I think are really up there, possibly in my top 30 Squeeze songs.
Yeah.
But with this one, it had to be Melody Motel, really melodic, and I think it works well with the overall album. So that's my choice.
Good choice. It's quite a fast song as well, isn't it? Again, it's one of those.
It is, yeah.
So many lyrics.
But you see, I'm coming off about 3 slow songs as well, with Woman's World, His House, Her Home, and Points of View.
Okay.
So I wanted to lift the tempo, just go out with a bang, basically. I think it's a really good song.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thinking with Peyton Place as well, end on this big, kind of amazing keyboard solo. And that was the last album that Jools played on as well, so that would give him a nice send off, I guess. So wonderful, fantastic. So we've done it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put a playlist down below of our respective Squeeze albums, and then people watching, if you would care to check them out, then you can do so. So let us know what you think. And
who has got the best list? The Squeeze fans. Who has got the best list? Let's see who's.
That has genuinely not occurred to me as a thing that we were going to ask people to do, but you can do that if you want. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Richard, for joining me. That was an absolutely wonderful
problem.
And we'll see everybody soon. Take care.
Bye.